Brave human pulls Vulpine woman from the water. Her shocking gift changes everything. The storm struck Loric Bay like a fist. Aaron Vale was latching his shutters when lightning lit the pier and he saw her. Fox fur bright, an arm tangled in a drift net dragged under. He grabbed a knife and dove. The water punched the breath from him. He cut until the mesh let go and the Vulpine woman rose with him, limp as kelp. On the boards she lay blue-lipped. Aaron gave his breath. She coughed brine and focused on him with amber eyes. "You pulled me from the wrong side," she rasped. "But I'd rather be here." He wrapped his coat around her and carried her into his shack where the stove threw heat. She shivered, tail curled tight. When she stood, she bowed with a grace that made the room feel small. "I am Sarah of the Tides," she said. "I owe you a life." "You don't owe me anything," Aaron said. "Just don't die." "In my law, a breath returned is a bond," she said. "Be careful with kindness. It changes currents you cannot see." She slipped into the fog. By noon the governor's cutters were measuring the sandbar for dredgers. Orders had come. Open a deep channel, bring in trawlers, never mind the reef nurseries or the small boats that fed Loric Bay. Aaron spoke at the hall. Governor Cale's men smiled. That night Sarah waited on the pier, mantle of woven reeds glittering with salt light. "They will butcher the reef," she said. "My people will strike back. It will start a small war that grows teeth." "Then stop them," Aaron said. "You have clans under the kelp. We have nothing but rust." "There is a way to bind both," she said. "Old, costly, mine to give only once. The Glimmer-Heart." "A fairy tale," Aaron said. "Fairy tales are treaties with the sea. When you pushed your breath into me, you entered our law. If I gift you the heart, you become shorekeeper. Your words at the keelstone will hold both peoples. You could forbid the dredge and call us to fish and salvage together. But you would be bound to." "Why me?" "Because you didn't ask who I was before you saved me," she said. "And because my mother is Wave Mother, and the law listens when I bleed for it." Aaron thought of Mina, his sister, coughing because medicine came too slow to this coast, of small boats tied with fraying rope, of dredgers fat with promise and ruin. The choice was an anchor falling. "Show me the stone." They walked at pre-dawn. The keelstone rose from the surf, a black tooth carved with ripples frozen in basalt. Sarah waded in, drew a shell knife, and pressed it to her sternum. Aaron cried out, but she only hissed and slipped her fingers beneath the skin as if into a pouch. When her hand emerged, it held a small luminous orb softly pulsing, like a heart remembering. "This is my right," she said. "I give you what the water gave me." She placed the Glimmer-Heart into his palm. Warmth swept him. He felt the tide lift inside his ribs. At sunrise the governor arrived with surveyors. Fishermen stood with folded arms. Beyond the break, eyes watched. Sarah's people. Governor Cale raised an amused brow. "And what is this, Mr. Vale?" "A beach sermon." Aaron stepped to the keelstone. The orb brightened, threads of light twisting into the carved script. When he spoke, the wind leaned closer. "I am Aaron Vale, who returned breath to Sarah of the Tides," he said, and the stone thrummed. "By the right of shorekeeper I fix sanctuary, reef gardens, kelp forests, nursery shoals. No dredge, no drag, no blast. In return, tide clans will guide our boats to the silver runs and share salvage of the star wreck east of Black Rook Rock. We'll build a pier there and split the gleanings." The bay answered. Fish rose in a silver boil. Long-bodied leviaths surfaced like patient hills. The governor's face paled. "This is nonsense," Cale said, then faltered as the surveyor's device blinked, showing a trench where Aaron's words had traced the line. A ring of barnacled pillars climbed from the surf like knuckles, fixing borders no cutter could miss. Sarah's people bowed from the waves. The fishermen murmured like tide. Governor Cale recalculated. "Very well," he said tightly. "We'll adapt." They did more than adapt. The weeks that followed brought joint salvage at Black Rook. Copper mesh and solar sails, barrels of medgel that eased Mina's lungs. Tide runners taught knotcraft and storm reading. Humans coaxed new engines into old hulls. Dinners were louder. Fights still sparked, but the water held to the words on the stone. On the first spring day, Sarah came with her mantle unfastened. "Does your tether chafe?" she asked, half teasing. He looked at the bay, at pillars like old teeth. "Some days I feel the pull," he said. "Most days I'm glad it's there." She stood beside him, shoulders almost touching. "Kindness changes currents," she said. "So does courage." Aaron turned the Glimmer-Heart in his hands. It pulsed against his skin, answering a rhythm he'd learned by listening. "Then let's keep steering." They watched the tide come in, their reflections shaking together in bright water. Two figures bound to a living line between shore and deep, where they were meant to be. On the first spring day, the sea was calm, and the wind carried the scent of salt and blossoms from the cliffs. Aaron stood at the pier, the Glimmer-Heart pulsing faintly in his hand, still as warm as the day Sarah had pressed it into his palm. He could feel the tether it had woven, not a chain but a current flowing through him, binding him to the bay and to her people. Sarah approached quietly, her mantle unfastened, the morning light glinting in the russet of her fur and the deep amber of her eyes. She studied him for a moment before asking, almost playfully, "Does your tether chafe, human?" Aaron chuckled, though there was truth in the question. "Some days the pull is heavy," he admitted, gazing out at the basalt pillars rising from the surf. "But most days I thank the tide for it. Without it, I'd be adrift." Her tail curled lightly as she stepped closer. "Kindness changes currents," she whispered, "but courage steers them. You've done both." He turned to her then, meeting her steady gaze. The Glimmer-Heart glowed softly between them, its rhythm syncing with his own. The bond was more than law now. It was trust, friendship, and perhaps something neither had dared name aloud. Together they watched the tide roll in, the waters shimmering with promise. Fishermen's sails dotted the horizon, and just beyond, Sarah's kin glided beneath the waves, guardians of the reef and now, partners in its keeping. Aaron exhaled, feeling the world settle into its rightful course. Whatever storms would come, he knew the bond he shared with Sarah had already changed everything. And side by side, human and Vulpine woman stood as keepers of a new future.